I remember the day everything fell apart. My eyes opened to a silence I had never felt before. It was the kind of silence that swallows you whole. No messages, no calls, no one checking in. I realized that the circle I had trusted so fiercely was gone. People I believed in abandoned me without notice. Opportunities I had poured my heart into vanished. My bank account was drained. My reputation was under attack. I felt like I was standing on a collapsing floor, each plank crumbling under my feet, and there was no one left to reach for. The failures came one after another. My plans fizzled. My allies turned against me. Hints of betrayal lingered in the air. Ugly rumors started circulating, and I had no power to stop them. People whispered lies about me, and I couldn't defend myself. I tried to fight back, but everything I said fell on deaf ears. The humiliation was real. Public rejections, online humiliation, jokes at my expense. Doors that used to open for me were now slammed shut. My mind was screaming. It wasn't a gentle voice of reason. It was raw self-doubt. I heard it every morning when I woke up. It told me I was worthless. It insisted that everything I tried would fail. It said everyone was laughing at me. It reminded me of every embarrassment, every lost chance, and every friend who left. It was so loud it felt like a physical presence in my head. My self-esteem sank to depths I had never known. I wondered if I even deserved to continue. I thought about quitting, packing up, and vanishing from every radar in my life. In those moments, it felt like life was crushing me. I looked at my own reflection and saw a shell of who I used to be. My eyes were empty. My face was sunken from the stress and lack of sleep. My days turned into a gray blur of anxiety and dread. Whenever I tried to rest, my mind reminded me of my failures. It replayed embarrassing moments and fed my nightmares with new twists on my fears. Sometimes I couldn't tell if I was awake or asleep because the torment was constant. I felt alone in that war. Nobody understood the chaos inside me. Everyone had their own agenda. People told me to suck it up, to be grateful, to move on. They didn't understand the heaviness in my chest. They dismissed my pain as a phase. I wanted to scream at them, to tell them how dark it really was, but I had no energy left to explain. So, I sank deeper. I cut myself off. Days went by without me saying a word to anyone. I laid in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out who I was and why I was still here. I considered quitting everything. I considered dropping every dream, every goal, and every vision I had once cherished. My own mind became my greatest enemy, and it begged me to stop. It told me there was no point. It told me that continuing the fight was a pointless effort. I believed it for a while. I gave in to the numbness. I stayed in that hole until I felt like I couldn't fall any deeper. That should have been the end of me. Logically, I should have tapped out. I should have walked away from my goals. I should have dissolved into a footnote in someone else's success story. But something happened in that darkness. A quiet decision formed. I decided that if I was going to go down, I would make them earn it. If life wanted me out, it would have to break every last piece of me. If people wanted to celebrate my downfall, they were going to have to work harder to finish the job. So I chose to stay. I told myself, "You're going to take everything from me. Then I'm going to make it the hardest fight of your life." I made that decision in a cold, bleak moment. I felt my entire body tense. My heart pounded in my chest. I knew this was the line I had to cross. I knew it meant facing each day with a determination that cared nothing for comfort. From that instant, I refused to die. Not physically, not mentally, not spiritually. I cut off the option of surrender in my mind. I told myself, no matter how hard it gets, I will not tap out. That's when the real war began. Day after day, I woke up with nothing left in the tank. My mind urged me to stay down, but I swung my feet out of bed anyway. My chest felt heavy, but I stepped forward. It wasn't about feeling strong or confident. It was about not letting my own thoughts dominate me anymore. It was about pushing through the suffocating anxiety that threatened to lock my lungs. I was tired. My head throbbed from stress, but I kept moving. Those mornings were a battlefield. The moment my eyes opened, the voice of self-doubt greeted me. It told me I was making a fool of myself. It said I was fighting a battle I couldn't win. It laughed at my attempts to rebuild, but I kept going. I forced myself to complete small tasks. I made myself eat. I forced myself to clean my space. I opened my email inbox and faced the rejection messages one by one. It was brutal, but I did it until I was numb to the sting. I refused to give in to the fear. I refused to run from the pain. During the days, I focused on whatever I had left. I wrote down new plans. I reached out to people who might give me a chance. I studied. I learned. I honed my skills. I dissected every mistake I had made. I looked at my failures without blinking. The regret ate at me, but I used it as fuel. I used my defeats to uncover where I was weak. I took notes on what I could have done better. I forced my mind to analyze every tiny detail of what went wrong. I turned my humiliation into data. I refused to let it stay as raw pain. I needed it to become an engine. At night, the fear returned in full force. I lay in the dark, staring into nothing, feeling like my chest was caving in. The voice was vicious, telling me to stop pretending I had a chance. It reminded me of the laughter from my enemies. It played images of them smiling while I suffered. It tried to crush me, but I started talking back. I told the fear to shut up. I said the words out loud until my jaw clenched and my hands shook. I cursed at the fear. I told it that I wasn't going to be its victim. I declared that I was not there for its amusement. If it wanted a fight, it had one. I spent long nights tearing apart my own excuses. I called myself out for every time I refused to give my best in the past. I admitted where I was soft. I recognized where I chose comfort over growth. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't flattering. It stung because I saw the truth. I had let people walk over me. I had let doubts run my life. I had built my plans on shaky ground, but now I was rebuilding. I wasn't chasing revenge. I wasn't trying to prove anyone wrong. I was fighting to become unkillable in my own mind. With each day, I felt a new kind of clarity burning in my chest. Pain sharpened me. Doubt made me dig deeper. I hated the taste of defeat so much that I became obsessed with overcoming it. I turned my failures into lessons. I turned my regret into a checklist of corrections. I turned my rage into consistent action. I felt the difference when I woke up. My energy was still low, but my resolve was unshakable. Every morning, I reminded myself that I was standing in the fire and I wasn't planning on leaving. There were no shortcuts. It was a process of daily battles, daily breakdowns, and daily victories, some so small they barely registered to anyone else. But they mattered to me. Each day I pushed one step further. Maybe I made a call I was scared to make. Maybe I confronted a problem I had been ignoring. Maybe I took a walk instead of sitting in my dark room. These weren't dramatic transformations. They were tiny steps forward when every cell in my body screamed for me to quit. I no longer cared about how others perceived me. I let them mock me. I let them doubt me. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just worked. I took the shame, the betrayal, and the abandonment, and I transformed it into an unbreakable mentality. I refused to compare myself to others. I refused to measure my progress by the world's standards. My only competition was the weaker version of me from the previous day. I stopped looking for applause. I was done seeking validation. I wasn't trying to be inspirational or heroic. I was surviving. I was advancing, inch by inch, no matter how many times I got knocked back. Each time I failed again, I studied it. Each new rejection was a lesson. Each friend who abandoned me was a sign that my path wasn't meant for everyone. I used to see these things as reasons to stop. Now I saw them as necessary purges to keep me sharp. Over time, a shift occurred inside me. The fear that once dominated my nights lost its bite. The self-doubt that hammered my mind in the mornings grew quieter. It was still there, but it had less power. When it tried to crush me, I stood up to it. When it told me I couldn't do it, I did it anyway. When it hissed that I was going to embarrass myself, I accepted the risk and moved forward. I stopped expecting comfort. I embraced the hardship as my daily environment. I'm not telling this story to highlight some sort of romantic transformation. There was nothing beautiful about it. It was raw. It was lonely. It was exhausting. My mind and body ached under the pressure. My spirit felt battered. I reached points where I thought I couldn't hold on any longer. But I kept going. I kept tearing down the weakness inside me, piece by piece, until it had no place to hide. I fought for this unkillable state because I had no other option. I refused to remain broken. I refused to stay quiet. I refused to be swallowed by doubt. This was never about revenge. This was about showing myself that I could survive anything. I wouldn't let humiliation define me. I wouldn't let failure write my ending. I was willing to walk through the scariest corridors of my own mind to prove that I was stronger than the nightmare. Life came at me with everything it had. People took shots at me when I was most vulnerable. My own mind begged me to quit. But I decided that if I had to crawl through hell, then hell was coming with me. I would not go quietly. I would not give up. I was prepared to lose my comfort, my reputation, and even my sanity in the pursuit of a mind that couldn't be killed. And I did it. Day by day, I rebuilt myself on a foundation of brutal honesty and relentless willpower. I found a sense of pride in the process. Not the pride that needs an audience, but the pride that burns quietly. A steady heat that refuses to go out. The day finally came when I realized I had changed. I felt the strength in my chest when I got up in the morning. I no longer needed to drag myself out of bed. I rose because I had things to do. I had battles to fight. I had a reason to push forward. My failures became badges of survival. My betrayals became stories of resilience. My regrets became fuel for the next step. I saw myself in the mirror, eyes clear, stance firm. I recognized someone who had walked through the fire and came out unbroken. I don't fear what might happen next. I understand that life can strike again at any moment. I know that more betrayals can come. I know that I can lose friends, lose money, and lose stability. But it doesn't break me, because I have learned how to adapt. I have proven to myself that I can outlast the worst cycles of despair. I trust myself to stand when I'd rather collapse. I have become unkillable in the only place that truly matters, my mind. And that's the most dangerous thing to anyone who tries to stop me. You can break my body. You can steal everything I built. But you can't kill a mind that refused to die. And that's exactly what I've become.